Hello, friends, and welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. My name is Scott Cowan, and I'm the host of the show. Each episode, I have a conversation with an interesting guest who is living in or from Washington State. These are casual conversations with real and interesting people. I think you're going to like the show. So let's jump right in with today's guest. All right, so folks, just a little truth in podcasting here. We've been having some technical challenges. I think this is our fourth attempt to make this podcast work today. Rob, tell my audience who you are.
Yeah, my name is Rob Kenney. I started a YouTube channel, Dad, How Do I, during the pandemic. There's lots of reasons why I started it. I thought of the channel several years before I actually started it. And during the pandemic, I kind of ran out of excuses for why I wasn't starting it. My daughter kept encouraging me. My daughter is now 32, so she was 28, maybe even 27 at the time because she just had a birthday. So yeah, she kept encouraging me, Dad, you just need to do it. You need to do it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm stuck at home like everybody else. I can show how to tie a tie. It wasn't a heavy lift to show how to tie a tie, right? Pretty quick video. And I suction cupped my phone up on my bathroom mirror and just showed how to tie a tie.
So was the tie one the first one?
Yeah, that was my first video. I actually started my channel April 1st. I joke about that because it was April Fool's when I started the channel. And then my first upload, because I was still trying to figure out the technology of it all. And so my first upload was April 2nd, and that was how to tie a tie.
And doing some quick research, I think that's your most watched video, isn't it? By a fairly substantial amount.
How to tie a tie, how to shave are kind of neck and neck. They're both, and those were my first two videos.
Yeah,
so
I'm here on YouTube, and 2.7 million views for both of them.
Yeah.
That's no small amount of observation in the world. The other thing, though, so I got to ask you this. So you started this April 1st, April 2nd was your first video. And as today, when we're recording this, it's June of 2024. So 4 years, 50 months later, okay, approximately. According to YouTube, you got 4.86 million followers.
Yeah.
When did you kind of wake up and go, oh, wow, this isn't what I expected?
Yeah. So my channel went viral in May, around the end of May.
Okay.
And so I only had probably, I'd have to look back to see exactly how many. I would say maybe 8 videos by that time.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was a gal on TikTok shared it, and it got shared on Facebook, and then Reddit got a hold of it, and that's when it kind of went bananas. And so I was getting subscribers left and right. When I first started the channel, I was hoping I'd have 30 or 40 followers. I was just going to try to download some information from my head that I learned the hard way. My dad left when I was 14, and so I learned a lot of things. I learned my brother taught me a lot of stuff because I went to live with him when my dad left. And, but a lot of things I just learned the hard way, how to deal with money, how to deal with, all kinds of different things. And so I'm grateful that my channel is much more than just a how-to channel, because I do have Wisdom Wednesdays and Feel Good Fridays where I share some dad jokes. It's kind of all, I try to give the whole dad experience, some groaning and some, so, and some of those aren't necessarily the most popular videos, but I think maybe in the long run, they'll all get watched because it is kind of the whole package.
So I got to ask you this question. This is my typical style of questioning of guests, or like when they're a business owner, I always ask the question like this. So what great idea did you have that flopped? So in your case, what video idea did you think, oh, this one's going to really be, this is good, and it just didn't hit the target?
Yeah, I don't think I get enough watch or views on some of my Wisdom Wednesdays, because I think, I think, as as an older, you just learn things over the year. No, you're young, but myself, and speaking for myself, but there's quotes that have meant something to me. And then I also, we live in an interesting time where people tend to get canceled if they say one thing wrong, you know, and yet they might have a lot of wisdom to share with you. And so that's even one of the Wisdom Wednesdays I've shared was, hey, if we're only looking for quotes from perfect people, there'd be no quotes. You know, I mean, you can't, I've learned a lot of things from people that I wouldn't, and I've shared that I wouldn't necessarily emulate how they live their lives, but they can say something profound still. And that's like, hey, I can grab that.
Right.
And so all that to say, I think that there's a lot of them where I'm like, boy, I thought that would have done better. And then there's ones I'm like, man, how did that one do so good?
Well, that was the flip. The follow-up question is, do you have any examples of ones that just kind of were resonated more with your audience than you might have thought?
Well, so here's a funny thing that I've found out that, especially on different platforms, you know, because I'm on YouTube, but I'm also on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook. I'm also on TikTok.
Right.
And so it's funny because certain platforms, especially Facebook, if you do something that's not quite the way other people think it should be, you'll hear about it. If you, because and everybody and anybody's got an opinion on how things are supposed to be done. I'm like, boy, when I started my channel, I've always, and I've said this in a lot of my videos, I'm just trying to show you a way to do something. It doesn't mean that it's the only way to do it. You might have a different way. One of the examples is how to iron a shirt. I've always kind of done it a certain way. And the reason you do it a certain way is so you don't miss a spot. Okay. You know, it's in my mind, that's how I've done it. I'm not I'm not a professional. You know, I haven't done that at the professional level, but I'll do it in a certain order so I don't miss it. And then people say, well, you should do it in this order. I'm like, but why? Why do I have to do it in that order when this order's worked for me for 30 years? I don't, you know, you have to prove it to me that that's really going to make a huge difference in how my shirt comes out. Right. I think the method is more, you just want to make sure you're hitting all the spots. I think that's the main reason why you do it in a certain order. If you've been taught a different way, that's great. If it works for you, great. But if you need a way, here, I got a way for you.
So how I solve that particular situation is I don't iron. I don't wear shirts that I have to iron. That's how I solve it.
That works.
Yeah, that's an option. That's just, but you know, it's not good for video content either. So you started on YouTube. Was that the first platform you started on?
It was.
Okay. Yeah. And then what was next? Was it Instagram next? Facebook next?
Instagram and Facebook kind of almost go hand in hand because it's owned by Meta.
Right.
And so, and my daughter was big helping me with that. I've since learned how to use it because I had to learn how to use YouTube. Right. I since learned that. So I took that back over, but she helped kind of get that thing up and running. And then,
and then TikTok is the latest.
I put off TikTok for a while just because I have a concern for the younger generation that it's shortening our attention span, you know, and even for older generation too, for that matter. We tend to want to swipe, be entertained to death. And you've been there for 3 hours, you know, scrolling through short videos and nothing that you're really learning a whole lot from, kind of wasting time.
Yes, I have similar apprehensions. All right, so we're going to pause. We're going to shift gears. I'm going to push the clutch in partially and then grind a gear here. But so where did you grow up? What area of Washington?
I grew up in Bellevue. I was actually born in New Orleans. Okay. My dad, so I'm one of 8 kids. There were 6 kids born in Wichita, Wellington, Kansas area. My dad worked for Boeing. Just to kind of give you a quick synopsis of what happened. And then my dad moved us to New Orleans because the work dried up at Boeing in Wichita. And so we moved to New Orleans for the space program. And that's where I was born in 1964. Okay. And then we moved up to Seattle in 1966 with Boeing, again, with the 747 program. Okay. And then I grew up in Bellevue, went to Sammamish High School.
Okay. And then you went to the best college in the state?
I did. I went to Central. Yeah. I didn't graduate from there. I went there for a couple of years. I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I actually sat out for a couple of years after high school. And then because of the family situation, you know, with my dad leaving and stuff, I wasn't really sure what to do, honestly.
Sure.
And I share about that in my book, about wishing I had somebody kind of guiding me to help me give me some direction instead of just going to school and hoping it sticks, So
I chuckle because I also, I went to Central right after high school, and my bio says my freshman year was the best 6 years of my life, which is somewhat accurate and somewhat tongue in cheek. There's 6 is a bit much, but I had a really good time at Central. I met wonderful people that are still dear, close personal friends of mine 40 years later. My time in Ellensburg was extremely valuable, just not officially recorded, with the diploma from Central Washington University.
Yeah.
But I also think, though, at 18 years of age, do you really know what you want to do? I mean, you go to school to major in accounting, and you get there and you think you want to major in accounting, and you start taking accounting classes, and you find yourself falling asleep in class because it's boring to you or whatever. And then you have to either stick it out or switch, and college is not cheap. It was when I started at Central. So here's a question for you. You went to Central, I think you said you started in 86, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started in 80. Do you know how much my tuition was my freshman quarter at Central?
If I had to guess, I would say $300.
$202 a quarter. $606 a year for tuition. So
yeah.
even in the early 80s, that was more money than $606 is, 2024. But I didn't have to take out loans. I didn't go into debt to go to college. I am very grateful for that. Where I see people today taking on staggering debt to go to college, being forced into trying to figure out what it is they're going to do while in college, and then go try to do that after college. In some ways, I always thought maybe it would be better to wait a couple of years until you had a little bit of life experience, and you kind of went, maybe I don't want to do accounting. Maybe I want to do, marketing, whatever, science, engineering.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just my take on it. So you went to Central, you took a couple years off. So you played football there, right?
I did play football. And
Okay.
so that was, part of it was, again, I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was a good football player in high school.
Mm-hmm.
But then, and I had some interest from some local colleges, but see, this is how ignorant I was. I didn't even know the difference between a JC, a university, a community college. It didn't mean anything to me. I just didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And my self-esteem was pretty low at the time because of my family situation. And so I didn't realize counselors were there just waiting for you to just ask them. I didn't take advantage of that. And so that's one of the things I hope to share with people on my channel too. I'm actually been talking about doing a podcast, and I want to get into some of that stuff to save people some of the heartache that I did, and talk to people that are in these positions that can help guide you. Because I agree with you that, if you don't know what you want to do, don't just go to school and start racking up loans. Mm-hmm. I think, or if you want to, a community college is a great way to go, as long as you get your 2-year degree. Mm-hmm. If you go to community college and play around and just get some credits, they might not transfer, and you wasted money and time. Mm-hmm. Maybe not wasted, because you might have found out what you liked. Right. So you would get that benefit. But if you can get your 2-year degree, of course, there's running start as well, where you can get your 2-year degree out of high school. That wasn't around when we were younger, but there's just a lot of options that, and I share that too, because again, football, I sat out for a couple of years, and by that time they've forgotten about you. They don't think you're going to come to college ever. And I just showed up at Central for spring football, thinking, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. It would have been way better if I went to a JC at the time that, Wenatchee Valley recruited me out of high school. They don't have a football program anymore, I don't think, but Wenatchee Valley, Yakima Valley, any of those I could have gone to help kind of get back in the spotlight, so people then would recruit you to these universities. The transfer protocol now, you can just transfer. Back then, it was a major deal. If you're going from a university to a university, you had to sit out a year and different things, So anyway, all that to say, it was, man, I wish I had somebody to tell me, instead you'd ask your friends, and your friends a lot of times will tell you, oh, you want to be a fireman, you should do this. Well, what do you know about being a fireman? You're not a fireman. So I should really talk to a fireman. And so that's, again, something that I hope to do on my podcast as well. Talk to people that are actually doing what you might want to do.
So I do want to explore this football thing. So what position were you?
Yeah, I played tight end in high school because I was kind of bigger. I was I was 6'3" then. I'm shrinking a little bit. I'm 6'2" now.
Okay.
So
all right.
Yeah. So I played tight end, and then at Central I played split end.
Split end.
I wasn't as fast as the normal split ends, but I always had good hands. So
question, was this during the Kitna era?
Kitna was after me. He was in the.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, he was in the 90s, early 90s.
Was it that? Yeah. Okay. All right.
I think so.
Okay. So when I went there, they didn't have a real good football program. It wasn't. Oh. It was a basketball school back then in the early 80s.
Yeah.
How was Central's football in 86, mid 80s?
Yeah, we were good. So this is another thing, as a walk-on, you got to kind of prove yourself. And there was a coach there at the time was Tom Perry. Yep. He kind of came and went at Central. So he'd been out and then came back. And anyway, so he was there when I came in 86, and then he stepped away, and then Mike Dunbar came in the following year, and we started to have success. We were ranked high. We made it to the playoffs, ranked 8th in the nation. It was NAIA at the time.
At that time. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And we were good. So it started to come back, and he put him on the map, and then he ended up using that as a stepping stone, Mike Dunbar, and he left, went to Toledo or something. I think
I want to say Toledo. You're right. Okay. So after college, I guess where I'm going with all these questions is kind of like picking your brain for the knowledge pool that you're sharing with people, now 40 years later. Mm-hmm. So what'd you do after college?
Yeah. So I, before college, when I was out of high school, I used to work at a gas station. Okay. So I haven't really shared this part of my story, but I worked at a gas station, and again, my self-esteem was pretty low. I didn't think I was valuable. Mm-hmm. And this one company used to come in and get their gas from us. And then I found out they were hiring. It was an office supply company. Okay. And so I went and applied there and got the job there just as a stock kid, and doing different things, helping out and doing some driving and stuff like that. And so I kind of moved up in the ranks at this, it was called Olympic Office Supply. And I worked there for a few years before I was like, I kind of always wanted to play football. I think I need to give it a shot. I just didn't have great direction. And so then I ended up going to Central because my sister had gone there. Okay. And so she had some familiarity with it. So that's how I ended up there. Anyway, so then I went to I went to Central for a couple of years. And then my dad, Boeing, again, the Boeing connection, he ended up, I haven't told this story really on any interview, so you're getting the exclusive here.
All right.
But I worked at my dad got me on at Boeing, and so I worked. Yeah, so that's part of the reason I cut it short at Central was like, okay, that football thing doesn't look like I gave it a good try,
sure,
the old college try, so to speak, and then my dad got me on at Boeing, so I was a drafter at Boeing. And I worked there for a couple of years, and then I got in, I met somebody there that actually, that's where I met my wife too. But I met somebody that her husband was doing something with audiovisual company that he is starting. And so I did that for a couple of years. That kind of fell apart. Then I was desperate. My wife was pregnant with my daughter. We were trying to figure out what to do. And so I went back to the office supply company.
Okay.
And asked them if they had a job. And they said, we love what you did, but we don't really have a work. Would you consider sales? And I'm like, I always considered myself an introvert, and sales always, I'm not that type of guy, And so, but I took it because I needed a job. And so I ended up in sales, and it worked out amazingly because I had the freedom of spending time with my kids as they were growing up, and the flexibility that I had. And I actually made some decent money at it. I was better at it than I thought I might be. I've gotten better over the years, but it took me a long time to get over the fear of public speaking. And as a salesman, I'm in with all these type A personalities that's not a problem for them. But
Right.
I found with that particular job, I usually only had to speak with 1, 2, or 3 people. And so I'm comfortable doing that. And so, yeah, anyway, so that's the roundabout thing of
Okay.
I did that so I ended up doing that for 30 years in office supply sales.
It's interesting because what you're doing on your channel, or I'll say channel singular, but all your channels, I have yet to be able to bring myself to do that. I can sit here and talk to you all day long. Yes, the camera's running, but nobody sees it. But, this is just for you and I to kind of look at each other. And I can sit and I can talk. We can have a conversation. I can talk to 2 or 3 people and have a conversation. That's fine. You ask me to get up in front of a group of people. If it's more than about 4 people, boy, is it terrifying for me. I mean, I hate to give it that much power, but it's terrifying for me. Even if I know the people. And really, if I don't know the people, I don't sleep.
I can empathize with you.
Yeah.
I know. I've struggled with social anxiety my whole life. I've had panic attacks where I'll be on, I used to have, again, a bunch of type A personalities for our sales meetings. And I'd be driving to our monthly sales meeting thinking, I don't really want to do this. Can I just, and so I'd call my manager. I'm not feeling good. He got to be where he understood that it was more than just, but he knew, as I was kind of trying to hide it from him, but he was such a good guy that I finally confided in him. I said, I honestly struggle with fight or flight in some of these times where I'm just sitting there thinking, what am I doing here? I don't belong.
Right. But if you're able to serve the customer, do you need to be at the meeting? I mean, that's the question I would always ask. It's like, if you're serving your customer and providing services that they need and value, do you need, not you specifically, but what's the benefit for someone like us to be in a meeting where we're anxiety ridden and now you've knocked us off track and now we got to go back, put ourselves back together and go back out. Almost better for us to just keep doing what we're really good at doing.
Yeah.
And get that information you would get at a meeting in another manner.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I think the owner, so I worked for Olympic, and then Olympic sold to a company called Complete Office is who I worked for. And the owner of that, he was great too. His name was Rick Israel. And he just super guy where I think he understood, and he was all about just performance. If you perform, this other stuff is secondary. Right. He didn't put such a highlight on. He thought that the meetings were important because they're, you're getting information, but he didn't ever make me, Rob, we're going to make you stand up and talk in front of everybody today. He was always gracious about that, where other people would talk, but my numbers were always near the top. And so I didn't have to do other things. So
with your dad, how do I? Have you changed how you're going about your videos from when you started? I mean, what's your setup like? You mentioned when you mentioned your first time you hung your phone off the mirror, have you complicated filming, or are you still keeping them, super straightforward and approachable? Or
yeah, I try to keep it. I mean, I'm a dad, so I think part of the charm is not, super fancy. So, I have an iPhone, and so I use my iPhone. That's what I record all my videos on. And I just have a tripod that I set up, and my wife helps me sometimes with kind of visuals where she's kind of zooming in on things for me. But for the most part, I just set up a tripod because it's easy and I can do it, and it's on my phone, and then I can edit on my phone too. So it's not overly complicated. Maybe in the future, who knows what it'll end up being like, but I think that's part of the charm.
I would agree with you. I think that makes it, to me, it makes it approachable and authentic, versus, not that a polished production doesn't mean it's authentic, but it maybe,
Yeah.
How many times a week are you publishing now? Do you have a release schedule that you're working
Yeah,
on?
I try to. I try. So I actually need to get, and I was working on it this morning, a Wisdom Wednesday, because it's Wednesday
Okay.
right now. So as we're recording, but I try to post at least a couple times a week. But I also have a life. I'm semi-retired, just turned 60
Mm-hmm.
just a couple weeks ago, or even week and a half ago. But so I'm just trying to. I don't know. I'm trying to provide useful information and content, but I'm not going to have the tail wag the dog. I'm not going to do that. We've planned financially pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was hoping to retire originally at 60 anyway.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think as opportunities come, we'll see what happens, but I don't want to be a slave to this thing. And you see a lot of people that are thirsty,
Mm-hmm.
thirsty on social media where, hey, look at me, look at me. I don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping just to provide useful content that in the long run, people will appreciate what I was trying to do, because I'm trying to, I talk about mental health and the importance of mental health. Again, panic attacks. I can empathize. I've
Yeah.
been there. And I can also empathize with people that maybe didn't have the greatest dad. My dad started out good, but went haywire for a while. And I talk about forgiveness too, all that, the whole package. I hope that it, continues on beyond me, because my life, I won't be here forever. So hopefully, who knows what's going to happen in the future with media or what have you, but at least it'll be there that people can consume and understand what I was trying to do. I'm trying to provide useful content that will help people and encourage them and empower them to be able to forgive, because forgiveness is huge. Because if you're spending energy on stuff that you can't do anything about, it really kind of seems silly when you put it that way, right? I know I was, though. I was
Yeah.
harboring unforgiveness and spinning that plate and spending energy and not forgiving my dad. And so that's wasted energy, in my opinion. Once I forgave him and moved on from that, boy, there was freedom for me on the other side of that. And that's why I try to encourage people to forgive.
Does your audience ever ask you, hey, can you do I'll say, do a video on how to tie a tie? Do they ever ask for specific advice?
All the time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I get emails and stuff from people all the time. And a lot of them are encouraging, just telling me, hey, I'm just so grateful for you. I've had people even say that I, in a roundabout way, saved their life, because they didn't think anybody cared and they were lonely and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I get emails all the time. I just had somebody send me a message on Instagram asking me how to fix her drain in their garden. I'm like, it's really tough. Yes, she has a drain, she was saying, in her garden. I think she's in the UK, but she's telling me. And so I said, I don't have a drain in my garden, so I don't know. Every house might be a little different. You start moving in different countries, it's completely different. And so I can't possibly show you how to fix everything and anything that you have, because I don't have it here.
Right.
So, yeah.
What has been the most requested? Has there been a theme?
Yeah, I think, so early on, I think my channel was pigeonholed into that I'm here to help young men.
Okay.
Because naturally, tying a tie, that tends to be for young men. Shaving your face tends to be for young men.
That's true.
But how to change a tire is for everybody, in my opinion. I think, and I had comments early on that, hey, I just, my boyfriend will do that. Well, what if you're driving and your boyfriend's not with you and it's dark out at night and you're alone? You hope some nice guy comes along and helps you, or, so I think it's important to try to show anything and everything to everybody. And one thing that has come out, two things that have come out of my channel is realizing that it was resonating on a different level, that people were crying watching me tie a tie rather than the actual instruction of tying the tie. I think it's because of the dad moment that maybe they never had or miss, or all of the above. That was something I didn't anticipate. And so I have I don't know if it was two things or necessarily, but I'm surprised by how it's resonated with all ages. I have 80-year-old kids. I call my my followers kids, and hey, I'm your 80-year-old kid.
Okay.
I just had somebody say, because I showed how to throw a football, and I know how to throw a football because I learned, and I know how to throw it properly because I just learned that with all the years of playing football. And so I showed that the other day, and somebody said, hey, I'm 68 and nobody's ever showed me this. Thank you. They and they jokingly said, hey, Dad, I'm 68 and nobody's ever showed me. So,
and I saw the football one, and it had a lot. There was a lot. I mean, a lot of views.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it depends. Yeah. It depends on the platform.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, I on TikTok, it has close to 1 million views on TikTok.
That's crazy to me. That's just absolutely crazy to me. So on all these platforms, they all give you demographics and all that. So how do your demographics, according to these platforms, show up? Is it?
Yeah, it's different. Yeah. Okay. And as you can imagine, it would be different. But so on YouTube, it's about, I used to say 80-20 because it was 80-20, 80% men and 20% women. And now it's kind of gone to about 60-40.
Wow. Okay.
60% men and 40% women. And if you go to Instagram, as you can probably imagine, it's flipped. And so it's 60% women and 40% men. And Facebook's kind of the same way. And TikTok, I haven't looked at TikTok recently to see what the demographics are.
Those are interesting demographics, though, that it's not 50-50. That would be frankly shocking, but it's 60-40 is pretty tight ratio there of, men to women or women to men.
Right.
And that I think that's a big testament to what you're doing. Until just before we started recording for the fourth time today.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you had a book. What?
Yeah.
What was the motivation and inspiration to do a book?
So when my channel went viral, as you can imagine, and end of May, and we're closing in on Father's Day, right? I was getting requests from you name it to come on and be interviewed and that sort of thing. But I also was being asked if I ever thought about writing a book. And so I had a few different publishers reach out to me early on.
Wow. Okay.
And then I had, some pretty big name publishers reach out to me. HarperCollins is who actually ended up what is the name? I can't think. The name escapes me, but it's a division of HarperCollins who ended up doing my book.
Is it Penguin?
So, no, it probably says right on here. So here's my book.
Yeah. I
mean, why can I not think of the?
Because you're on the spot.
William Morrow.
Okay.
William Morrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
so
do you enjoy the process of writing a book?
It was a little tough because it was just such a busy time because I was still doing my regular job. I was also doing Dad, How Do I? And I was being asked for interviews. And then now suddenly I'm writing a book, and it was a lot of work because they wanted to try to capitalize, I think, on the popularity of everything and get the book out in a year, which is normally quick,
right?
It was less than a year because we started. So I had a ghostwriter because I wouldn't consider myself a writer, so to speak, and so I thought I want to make sure I do this right for them and do it well. And so I hired a ghostwriter, and we would meet. We started in October of 2020, and it came out in May of 2021.
That's a really fast turnaround for a book. I never really realized until I started talking to more authors on the show the lead time on a book project. I was really quite surprised. So that's a really fast turnaround. Okay.
Yeah.
Putting you on the spot.
2
years from now.
How well.
Yeah, 2 years from now.
What do you how well I did with the William Morrow
that's
thing?
Okay. That's half the fun for me. No, but 2 years from now, what do you want your platform to look like? What do you hope to accomplish in the next couple of years with this?
Yeah, I hope to just continue to do what I've been doing. It's been on an upward trend.
Mm-hmm.
My channel continues to grow, and I think the popularity of it. I'm hoping, to pass along to people again, it's kind of the same old thing on a grander scale, where I hope that I would love to be able to go out on tour, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, and meet people and talk to them and help encourage them that just I think a big thing, like I talked about with forgiveness, I think sadly there's such a major problem with fatherlessness all over the world. My
Mm-hmm.
channel is all over the world. I get, it goes viral in Brazil, and then it goes viral in Australia, and then all of a sudden I have all these followers from all Russia. Actually, recently I started getting a whole bunch of, somebody was sharing it on one of the platforms, maybe Instagram, and
Did you
sharing a
like do a
story.
thing on how to drive on ice, or I mean,
Again, I think it's just the resonating with the fact that I want to bring back the fact that being a dad is cool.
mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that a lot of times dads can be made fun of, like Homer Simpson and or Al Bundy, and we can have a good time yucking it up, but I don't like it, because I think it also maybe lets people think they can make fun of dads,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a hard job being a dad,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you're working, trying to support, and you're trying to do the best you can, and then if you're getting beat up with friendly fire, that's and we have such a problem with fatherlessness in, again, all over the world. If I could help with my channel to even move the needle just a little bit to help people understand, if you do choose to leave for whatever reason,
mm-hmm.
I can't, it's such a broad,
Right, right,
I
yeah,
can't paint with such a broad brush. Everybody has their reasons. There's different things going on, but make sure that you really think this through, because if you leave, there's a void,
mm-hmm.
and that needs to be filled by somebody's picking up the slack. And so if I can encourage people that if you've been through something and maybe your dad left, you don't have to make those choices yourself. You can do it differently. Don't use that as an excuse.
Okay. One of the questions I ask all my guests, and we're gonna have a little bit of fun with you, or play along,
Okay.
is coffee. Where's a great place to get coffee near you?
Yeah, I usually drink my coffee at home.
Okay,
I get up early and
you
sit
can
with my
stop.
dog and
You can stop.
have my coffee.
Okay, you can
Okay.
stop. So I'm going to phrase the next question like this.
Okay.
Dad, how do I make a cup of coffee?
Well, so here's a little trick that I didn't know, but when I got into office supplies, I found out that, so we started selling coffee, and a company, I just got to give a shout out to them because I really enjoy their coffee. It's Cafe d'Arte.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a coffee called The Meaning of Life,
Right.
which I really enjoy. It's a great coffee.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I learned was get a coffee maker. If you're going to drink your coffee at home, because you can save a lot of money doing that,
Right.
Get a coffee maker that has a bold setting on it, because what that does is it slows down the brew, so you get a more flavorful coffee. A lot of times we're in a hurry to get our coffee, and so you might I want it fast to come dripping through there and then get my cup of coffee. And they even have those things that stop it, so you can pull out, steal a cup of coffee before it's completely done. But I would recommend that, make sure you get a bold setting. Okay. It just makes for a more flavorful coffee, in my opinion.
Now, I have not tried their Meaning of Life. Is that a darker roast coffee?
It's not super dark, and so it was a couple years ago where that was really what I was all what I was drinking. But I have gotten more into a French roast now, where I drink a kind of a more darker coffee. So it's not quite a dark coffee, but it's not a light coffee. It's kind of a medium, but I think a little darker than a medium.
Okay. So one of the trends in coffee with, these micro roasters and all that, and no disrespect, but they tend to there's this trend in coffee for lighter roasts, and there's some great coffees. Don't get me wrong. There's some great lighter roast coffees, but for the most part, my palate isn't sophisticated enough to pick up those tasting notes of, oh, I picked up a little bit of nutmeg here. I just, I want hot black liquid.
Yeah.
And so I tend to, my go-to is I like, darker roast, pure coffee. Very rarely do I ever add anything to it. And the only thing I'd add to it is like, half and half. I never put any sugar in it. And I understand that that's kind of, a caveman technique to a lot of people. A lot of people are like, oh no, I want the,
it's way better for you. You're saving on all the calories.
I'm saving on,
I like a little creamer.
Yeah,
but.
I know a little every now and then, a little cream just to cut it. Sometimes it's fine, but I don't go. I tend to make fun of, and this, not my place. I shouldn't make fun of anybody, but if somebody's drinking oat milk, I tend to make fun of them. It's those oat milk lattes, or and I mean, good for you. I'm glad you're enjoying your beverage, but that's not my thing. My thing is coffee. At home, I'm using an AeroPress, which is a plastic tube, and it's a single cup. Making a single
Familiar
cup.
With it.
Yeah, that's my go-to thing at home is an AeroPress. If I'm gonna, maybe French press once in a while, but I think your advice about the bold setting on a coffee maker. The other thing about a coffee maker that I think, if you can add, is making sure that it heats the water enough. So many of these machines don't get the water warm enough. You don't want it boiling, but you don't want it. Want it 150 degrees. What area of Puget Sound do you live in now? What do you call home?
Yeah, Kent.
Kent. Okay.
I live in Kent. So we moved down here because I couldn't afford to stay in Bellevue. We had to, because Bellevue changed a lot from when I was a kid.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. I saw something in the Seattle Times the other day, last week. The average house price in King County now is $1 million. In King County. So that means Kent. Yeah. That means Burien, Tukwila. Okay. I'm going to get to Kent around lunchtime, and I'm always looking for a really interesting place to eat or a good place to eat. Where would you recommend for me for lunch in Kent?
Yeah, there's a lot of places that we've kind of found, but I really like the Banyan Tree.
The Banyan Tree.
Got to give a shout out to them. Banyan Tree down at Kent Station. It's really, really good Thai food.
Okay.
Their pad Thai is amazing, but I like their pineapple curry. Pineapple curry with rice is so good.
So how many stars?
I'm a wimp. So the pineapple curry is naturally hot and kind of naturally spicy, but I always just take a 1 star. I like to enjoy my food. I don't like to be sweating while I'm eating.
There's so many people that, my son loves hot sauces.
Yeah.
I think Tabasco is too hot. I mean, ketchup sometimes seems a little spicy to me, but there's so many people that like these, what I'll call extreme heat experiences. I can skip that. I don't need to. I'm with you. I like to enjoy my food. I don't like to be uncomfortable. And I love curry. And sometimes it's like I'll go to a place and say, I'll go there once. Let's say you and I went to the Banyan Tree, and and I get a 1 star. Next time I might try 2.
Yeah.
And I almost always regret that choice. But every now and then I'll push just a little bit, but never, 3 or whatever their cap out is. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you like to do when you're not giving advice? What do you like to do for fun and recreation?
I love to walk my dog. That's one.
So what type of dog?
Peaceful thing. She's a mutt. Okay. She's a border collie mix.
Okay. High energy.
And we lost a dog. We used to have 2 dogs, and we had to put one down about almost a year ago to the day, which was sad. So she's a great dog. She is so loyal, just a great dog. It's interesting because I shared this in my book about the one dog that the kids kind of grew up with. I always thought was a good dog, for the most part, because she didn't nip. She didn't snap at the kids or whatever, and they could be crawling on her. And I gave her way too many points for that, and not, and and gave her a break on the fact that if you opened our front door and she went outside, you'd be chasing her for 30 minutes to get her back. She just didn't want to come. It's like she's always trying to escape. So we got a little bit of PTSD. This dog her name's Lola. Great dog. And she just hangs around. She wants to be with us. That's what my son says. Why do we act like her name was Gan, was our first dog. Our daughter named her when she was really little, but so I don't think the name means anything, but she used to escape. And it's like, I never really thought about that. My son said that dog didn't really want to spend time with us. She was always trying to leave us. So now with Lola, she just sits and stares at me and just waiting for me to do something. And she's so excited to be around me.
So where's a good place to take her for a walk?
Just in our neighborhood. Okay. We just go up and walk, and we usually try to walk a couple miles after we get done here too. My wife and I are going to go for a walk with her. So that's, it's funny that now that I've gotten older, simple pleasures, I'm all about simple pleasures. I'm fairly content. I don't need a whole lot to make me happy.
We have a Bernese mountain dog who's 2 years old, and he's about 140 pounds.
Oh, and that's a big dog.
He's a big boy. And he's blissfully unaware of his size. He's actually given me kind of a black eye before by hitting me in the eye with a paw. But he's so sweet. And he's just, but he's a pony. I mean, he's just, he's
140 pounds is huge.
Yeah. And, he's a pony. And Berner's, he's the perfect dog. Well, he's not the perfect dog for me. He's the perfect dog for me, but for all the wrong reasons. And what I mean by that is like, he doesn't really like to go for walks. Like a half a mile is enough for him. Which is fine with me, but I should really be walking more. So it's like, that's why I'm saying he's not the perfect dog. I should, have more like yours, where we can go 2 or 3 miles and they're like, come on, let's keep going. And I'd be like regretting it, but then it would be better for me.
Yeah.
All right. I have a last question to ask you before I ask you to tell everyone where they can find you online. So you ready for this question? This is the most important question you've ever been asked in any interview ever. Now, I'm going to set the parameters for you. It's a very simple question. You must answer it, and you must give me your reason why. Okay?
All
right.
Okay.
Do you agree? You're going to play along?
Well, I might have to go let my dog back in. No, I'm joking. Yeah, okay. I might have to let her in, but
here we go.
Bail on you.
Here we go. Cake or pie?
That is a tough question, but I would probably choose pie.
All right. Why?
I like a good like a strawberry rhubarb pie. I like that. I also like apple pie. I like pumpkin pie.
You lost me.
And really see. I make a good homemade pumpkin pie, but I like apple pie warmed up, or strawberry rhubarb warmed up, and then vanilla ice cream. Really? Just vanilla. They got so many different vanilla flavors now. Vanilla bean, French vanilla.
Right. So you're firmly in the pie camp then.
I am. I do like a good cake, but yeah, I would take pie over cake.
Okay. There you go. Some people, you struggled a little bit. Some people, it's like asking to name their favorite child or what hand we're going to cut off. Some people are just adamant it's, cake, and you can't, how dare you try to dissuade me that anything but cake or pie, it's just kind of fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
As we wrap this up, I got a couple really, really follow-up questions. One, what didn't we talk about that we should have? And two, which kind of ties into that, where can people find you to watch your videos? Where's a good place for them to go? And there you go.
Yeah. I would say one thing we didn't really get into too much is I think a big reason, and I did a video on this, is what is your why? Why do you do things? And I think for me, I'm a man of faith. And so I'm vocal about that. I think that's important. And I think I'd be a fool to try to act like it's all about me. I have a much bigger vision. And I think the Bible does say that you're supposed to help widows, orphans, and the fatherless.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I feel like I'm doing all three of those. And I get emails and messages from people all the time in all three of those categories. Maybe not necessarily widows, but single mothers
Mm-hmm.
that are trying to raise young men and not knowing what to do in certain situations. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the platform that I've been given to be able to try to spread kindness. It isn't always easy to be kind. I'm not, it's not I think people, I'm not Pollyannish where I think that, oh, you just need to be kind to everybody. People can be hard to be kind to.
Some people can make it very difficult. Yes.
If you travel at all, you
Yes.
see the selfish nature of people because they tend to think only in their little box about what they're doing instead of, can you recognize when we're on this airplane that, when you grab the back of that chair, that's my chair. And you're shaking me, just all the little things like that added up. And I told my wife because we just went on a long trip, but when we got back, I said, I can't wait to just hang out with Lola. I miss my dog.
Right.
The more I hang out with people, the more I miss my dog, that saying. But anyway, I got off on a tangent there.
No, that's you're right. We didn't specifically address the why, and the why is vitally important for all of us. What is our why?
I think it is because it keeps me going. It motivates me to want to continue to do what I'm doing because I think I'm providing something that is valuable, that may not be appreciated just yet. I do have people say they just love to hear my voice. They have it in the background playing in the background to help reassure them that things are going to be okay. So I'm grateful for that. And then, I have my book. It's called Dad, How Do I?
Mm-hmm.
I'm on YouTube, Dad, How Do I? I'm on Instagram and Facebook, Dad, How Do I? I'm on TikTok as the real Dad, How Do I? Because since I didn't get on there early on, somebody else stole that name.
Okay, got it.
From me. I'm on kind of all those, and we'll see what the future holds. I hope to, whatever I can do, even to grow this thing, to help make it an encouragement to people to understand the coolness of fatherhood as we're heading into Father's Day. It's very important. We need mothers are important, but dads are important too.
Absolutely. Well, Rob, thank you so much for taking the time and being patient as we got this thing started today.
Sorry about that. Mainly my fault, I think.
I don't think so. I think it's just gremlins in the system, if you will. It's a little, it's just technology can sometimes be a challenge for us. So I appreciate the patience, and I wish you continued success with your channel. And this will have happened before this episode comes out, but you're going to be on Seattle TV Q13 tomorrow. So this will be, people can probably go to their website and see that. Have you ever been interviewed on TV before?
I've been on a lot of Zoom interviews.
Okay.
Or Zoom, whatever. They use different platforms all over the place. And so, I've been, and so my in-person interviews, I was on the Today Show last Father's Day year with Hoda and Jenna.
Okay.
I was actually in person, flew out there and was in person with them, with a couple other guys. Right. And then I was also on New Day Northwest in person.
Okay.
So the in-person ones aren't near as common, but I've been on a whole bunch of I've been on the Today Show several times remotely.
Okay. That's so. Let me ask you this: when you're on the Today Show, do you see a bump in consumption?
Yeah, you see people that
immediately follow.
Just find out about you at the time. And speaking of, like we were talking about with social anxiety, though, it's surreal. And my first in-person interview was New Day, and my wife and I were driving to Seattle, and I'm going, what am I doing? Am I really going to go sit in this studio? And I didn't know if there was an audience or not at the time. There wasn't. They may have an audience now. So one thing that really was cool, and so I got to give a shout out to this guy, Cisco. If you're familiar with Cisco, the gardener.
Yeah.
Familiar with him? He was on the show. He was on the show the same day because he's a regular on New Day. And what a great guy. I'm telling you, that grounded me. I got there and I'm like, oh, what am I doing? And then Cisco was just so friendly. Just a really super guy in person. I started asking him about some horse tails that I had growing in my yard. And he was so sincere, and he really wanted to solve my problem for me. He was telling me anything and everything. And he said, oh, wait, I'm being called onto the set. You know how he kind of gets nervous, or he's kind of whatever. Yeah. I'm going to get called on the set. He goes on the set, does his thing, comes back out, picks up the conversation with me. So he wasn't just, just putting up with me. He was sincerely interested in helping me.
That's
what a great guy. So that really helped. That really just calmed me. I'm like, okay, I'm going on next. Okay, I got this.
All right. How was the Today Show? Do they have people in place to kind of help calm the nerves of a inexperienced interviewee?
I would say no.
Okay. All right.
So I was on there. There was two other guys, and they had a PR person that was there with them. I didn't.
Okay.
And so I had my wife and my daughter, and my manager were all. My manager flew out there too, but so I had them. But I was just kind of. I hope I do okay here.
I couldn't.
It was pretty interesting. But it went well. They treated me well.
I'll tip my cap to you because I can't imagine. I can't imagine being able to do that. So good on you. Yeah. And, all right.
Thanks.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And keep sharing wisdom and tips, especially like how to throw a football. That's very cool, because you're right. It is a skill.
There's a certain technique, and I go to the beach and see people. I'm like, yeah, you don't know how to throw a football, do you? So.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Hope you enjoyed the show. You can reach me on Twitter at ExploreWaState. I'd love to hear your comments. You can also visit our website at explorewashingtonstate.com. If you know anyone who would like the show, it'd be amazing if you'd share the show with them. This is the biggest way that we grow this show. Good old word of mouth. Glad you were here with me today, and I hope to have you listening to the next episode. See you then.